Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, born out of his frustration with obtaining licensed content, Stephen Conmee co-founded Contentio. The startup business has recently obtained €390,000 from Enterprise Ireland to pioneer new technology aimed at streamlining content licensing. Stephen joins us now to tell us about how the platform works. But Stephen, where did the idea for Contentio come from?
Great to be here, Karl. So the idea came from my own background, started off in journalism, then became a publisher and an editor, and I licensed content in my job. And I always found it extremely difficult, very time-consuming, very form-heavy, very human-centric. I went to work for Shutterstock and we licensed images all around the world, and that whetted my appetite about the whole thing about content licensing. And it was born out of frustration. I was trying to license a piece of content off a large publisher, and I actually gave up after 3 days. The process was that bad. And I thought to myself, why isn't this more transactional? Why isn't it easier to do this? And that's really where the kernel of the idea came from.
And talk to me about your time in Shutterstock and what you learned there.
Yeah, so in Shutterstock, I was on the editorial side, and we had a team of 12 editors in Dublin, and we received editorial images. So these are news images from all over the world, from 4,000 contributors across the globe, and we edited them and put them onto a big database, and then we distributed those to news desks and publishers all around the world. So it was very interesting. It wasn't the stock images that Shutterstock is very famous for. It was the editorial images. So these will be news images, pictures of politicians, celebrity events, sporting events, images that feature in newspapers.
So what is Contentio and how does it address the problems that you outlined?
I'd see Contentio as a bridge between the person who wants to license content and the person who owns the copyright. We see ourselves as a system. We're not a marketplace. We don't host any content. So we have developed a tool called the License Finder. And this means that if you discover a really piece of interesting content online, you can just copy and paste the URL of that web page, paste it into our License Finder. And our system will then find and alert the copyright holder and tell them if somebody wants to license their content.
And how have you developed such a database?
Well, that's it. It's an ongoing process. And while we have a massive database, if a request comes in and the copyright holder isn't on our database, our system is able to alert us that that's not the case, and we can then make sure that the copyright holder is added to the database.
Okay, so if someone is looking to license a piece of content, they upload it into your system, and once you find the owner of the license, what happens next?
They're alerted that somebody wants to license their content, and what they'll do is they'll get a profile of the person who wishes to license the content. So when you're licensing content, you look at the person who wants to license it. There has to be certain bona fides, like where they're from, what business or industry they're in, what kind of circulation do they have in terms of their own publication? Are they an academic body or are they a commercial publication? So the licensor, i.e. the copyright holder, will get a full profile of the person wishing to license that content. And they can either say yes or no. Now, there's money on the table, so most of them will say no, particularly because we always say that, if you're a good actor, you're licensing content. If you're a bad actor, you're stealing content. And
there's no shortage of stealing content going on online at the moment, isn't there?
It's a big issue. And we've all heard about, copyright has really come into our lexicon, and everybody understands what it is now because of the AI, large language model companies, essentially scraping the web and taking people's copyrighted content, thinking that it's theirs to use to train their language models. So we have a lot of cases in court, and then you have a lot of the AI companies doing deals with big publishers, actually licensing their content now in these kind of multi-billion-dollar deals.
So typically, what type of licensed content is most in demand?
It's normally to do with entertainment, which is huge, sports, which is another huge thing. And then you have stories or features or interviews that a typical publisher wouldn't be able to commission or do themselves. So they license it off another publisher. If you're ever reading the Financial Times, for example, or even the Irish Times, you'll often see copyright Financial Times at the bottom of some articles or copyright the Telegraph at the bottom of some articles. That's licensed content. So it's where a big publisher like the Irish Times, love the story, feel the story is relevant to their readers, don't have the resources to commission a story like that, so they license it and publish it in their own paper.
And with large language models being used to reword published content, do you expect that this is going to cause you much of a challenge?
Yeah, and that is an issue whereby people rewrite content and try and pass it off. However, There are plagiarism detection tools, and we're going to develop a system ourselves that can do that. There are plagiarism detection tools out there, and even ChatGPT, if it rewords an article, it's still not that sophisticated. It is an issue, definitely, that kind of plagiarism, that kind of copyright infringement, where people take another person's content and reword it using an AI language model.
And provide us with an insight into the technology that's underpinning your platform.
Yeah, so we have AI researchers, and then we also have kind of full stack developers. So with a full stack developer, the application we're building on, it's built on things like Java. It's built on kind of recognizable technology. The application itself is the kind of the bridge between the licensee and the licensor. And then the AI development that we're doing, we're basically creating what we call a digital assistant. So this is like a chatbot, but it's trained to be really, really knowledgeable about copyright, about licensing. So the user can ask it anything, and that's trained on a larger open source language model called Llama. And what we're doing is we're feeding it information so it becomes an expert in copyright law. Sorry, not copyright law, but issues regarding copyright. We can't say law because it's not legal advice. It's an assistant. It's not yet an agent. And every question it gets, obviously, it learns as well.
And who are the target clients for Contensio, and how are you going to gain traction with them?
Yeah, so there's two sides to this. There's the licensees, so they're the people who seek licenses. So we're making life easy for them to seek licenses. And then there is the licensor, so that's the copyright holder. So they would be publishers. They would be any business, organization, or media company that actually creates content that is licensable. So they can be mid to top tier digital publishers in the States, in the UK. They can be, academic publishers, book publishers. So anybody who creates copyrightable material, and licensable material can use our platform, and they can easily license it out.
While it's easy to define the licensor, is it more difficult and complex to define who the licensee will be?
They're good actors. They're people who want to license content because they don't want to be in breach of copyright. They don't want to be accused of copyright infringement. People who license content tend to be those who work in media, obviously. But then you also have, people working in education, people working in other forms of publishing. You've got ad agencies, even documentary filmmakers. Anybody who needs to clear licenses can use our license finder to try and clear that license and get the copyright for it.
How are you going to make sure that Contensio is on their radar?
Well, old-fashioned sales and marketing, this is we're starting with a lot of inbound and we're starting with outbound. So inbound is where we create a lot of content and advice and information around this, and hopefully we rank very high in Google when people are looking to find easy ways to license content. And then outbound is where we ring people. It's boots on the ground, and it's phone calls, and it's email marketing and all that kind of good stuff.
Is Contensio going to have an infringement division to work on chasing down bad actors on behalf of licensors?
Yeah, I mean, that was in kind of a part of our original business plan, but it's tricky. That's almost like a separate business, So what we're doing at the moment is we're building this business. So, the kind of the copyright infringement business certainly was an element of our original plans, but we're focusing on the licensing business.
And Stephen, what revenue model underpins the business?
It's a SaaS model. So basically you can, if you're a publisher or a copyright holder, you can pay a monthly fee to have our software on your system that allows you to license out. And then if you're a licensee, you pay a 15% charge per license agreement.
And of course, the business is based in Trinity College's Adapt Centre. But how has this helped you to develop Contensio as a business?
It's part of the commercialisation fund supported by Enterprise Ireland, and the money goes into research. So we're giving money to obviously hire researchers, to hire developers, to hire commercialization people, and obviously product people as well. So all the money raised went into jobs. So yeah, it's great to be in Trinity. It's great to be in the Adapt Centre, which is the centre of AI-driven content in Ireland. So it's fantastic.
And Contensio recently secured €390,000 in funding. What are your plans for that?
The money goes to researchers, so we don't get the money into our bank account. Trinity College will hold that money, and it goes into jobs. So it goes into people who can help us with research, AI researchers. It goes into developers, it goes into commercialization people as well.
As a startup business, what are your key growth plans for the business over the coming years?
Key growth plans are targeting the big markets where obviously publishing and licensing are most dominant. And the biggest one is obviously America, particularly the east coast of America. And then the UK also has a very, very healthy digital publishing sector. So we're going after those two markets first.
Of course, China traditionally had a reputation for turning a blind eye to copyright. How has that changed over the years? And is that a market that's on your radar?
You know, it's such a vast market, and we never say never. So, and you're right about copyright infringement in China. It's almost an industry in itself there. So, you know, there's plenty of work there, I'm sure, on the other side of things. But yeah, it's definitely a market. You know, the whole Asian market is definitely a market for us because it's so vast, it's so huge. A huge amount of publishing, by the way, goes on over there as well. So we're concentrating first on English-speaking markets. And as I said, you know, never say never. China could be in our sights.
And have you any intention of spinning Contensio out of Trinity?
That's the aim. We're a spin-in company. We get a runway of about 12 to 15 months. And then hopefully when we have proven that there's a commercial model here, we've commercialized the product and the customers on board, we can spin out. Is
the next step then in that respect to go out there looking for angel investment?
Yeah, or bootstrapping the business, you know. But yeah, certainly investment is needed. All startups will say that, you know, investment is needed. So yeah, absolutely.
For anyone listening this morning that is considering setting up an AI-focused business, what advice have you got for them?
Get some domain expertise. AI is moving so quickly. It's unbelievable. And I would say try and get close and friendly with AI researchers and developers who are maybe masters or PhD students at this stage, because they're going to be the future kind of developers of the future. They're going to be the developers of the future. So it is early days in terms of AI. I would advise anybody who's looking at an AI business is to get very familiar with the technology, understand that it moves so quickly, and align yourself with high quality, reputable researchers.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Stephen Conmee from Contensio, and we look forward to hearing about the company's growth over the coming years.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.